Is your CPU being ruined by Serum 2? Do your projects feel laggy and unworkable? Well, today we're going to go over some tips and tricks for optimizing Serum, as well as look at some workflow things that you can do to help keep you in that flow state and making music. The worst thing is everything's lagging out and you're making an awesome banger and you can't hear what's going on and your CPU's shutting down and it's bad. So we're going to look at that, and then I'll tell you about the setup I'm using and how that works using all the Serum 2 instances. So, let's get to it. So the first thing we can do for CPU optimization is managing Unison effectively. Unison is a powerful tool for enhancing the depth and richness of a sound by layering multiple voices, slightly detuned or panned, creating a fuller, more powerful tonal presence. However, the overuse of Unison can potentially lead to quality and performance issues. So the first thing we'll do is keep our Unison count low. Around 3 to 7 is recommended. You can go all the way up to 16, but this might not be necessary for what you're trying to do. And imagine having 10 instances of Serum, all with 16 voices playing in 3 wavetables. You're going to be maxed out potentially. Another thing with multiple voices is you can potentially create phasing issues. Another thing you can do to create the width and depth in your sounds is add plugins that do exactly that. So you could add some hyper dimension. You can also add a chorus effect, which will help you add some width. Flanger can also work well for this. And even a phaser could help. So we'll turn our Unison on 1. We'll turn all our effects off. It's very flat, right? It's very mono. There's not a lot of depth to this sound. But then we'll crank all of our effects on. It's already so much wider, and we're saving our CPU because we're running one voice. Now you can turn your Unison up a little bit and play with different things, but to get that width, you gotta kind of think outside the box sometimes. Instead of just cranking it up to 16 and frying your CPU because you're gonna be running a bunch of synths for a particular song, keep it low and play with different effects and see what kind of soundscapes you can build using that. It's much easier to run a few effects on the channel than 16 different voices on this wavetable. So similarly to using effects to create with, now in Serum 2 you can actually run an effects bus and run everything to that. And it will actually use less CPU. So Serum processes effects applied to an oscillator per voice, so each note played, these effects are being applied. While it's powerful creating rich and detailed sound design, can also dramatically increase your CPU usage, since the effects are calculated for every active voice. You can optimize this by using an effects bus, as we see here, and it'll share the processing whenever possible. This means routing our oscillators, our sources, to the effects and apply our effects here onto the bus. So we'll do the same thing and we'll add all these spatial plugins and just throw them in there, mash them together, right? So we got two wavetables, and we'll go to this right here and open that up, and now we can actually route to FX bus 1 or FX bus 2. So we'll crank all this up to FX bus 1 and see how that sounds with one oscillator. There we go, instant whip. So we'll do the same thing for oscillator B and run these to our FX bus 1. So really powerful to just run everything to a bus. And also, if you want to affect these oscillators differently, we can run oscillator 2 to bus 2 and pull up our effects for bus 2 and do something different. So maybe we want this really washed out with some reverb. Maybe a little delay on that. Throw some delay on it. Go ahead and turn our Unison up to 3. It shouldn't be too CPU heavy, but we'll see. And then the combination of these. So there's just a couple of unique ways that you can optimize your CPU using Serum 2. Once you have the sound sounding good and how you want it, you have all your effects across your audio effects within Serum and in your DAW, go ahead and freeze your track. And that alone will help optimize your CPU, right? Because now this entire Serum is frozen. And if you want to, you can actually see what that wave looks like by just dragging onto an audio file. So if you like working with audio, now you have it here and you can pitch and warp and do more things with it. But then you always have your original patch here that you can just unfreeze that and go in and tweak a few things and then go ahead and freeze it back. And using your effects creatively will help significantly reduce the CPU in Serum 2, especially if you have a lot of them going on. And then of course, freeze everything as you go. And then if you need to make tweaks, go back and unfreeze it. So lastly, I have a Mac Mini M1 from like 2020, and it works great. I made a whole project where my entire drum rack was all Serum samples. I had like probably 10 synths, 5 different effects, and it was all Serum, and I was having no lags. So if your computer's older, I'd consider maybe saving up and looking at a new machine in the future, because I used to produce on a like 2012 Apple desktop, and man, that thing cannot do anything anymore. It just gets too old, the software's out of date, and it can't run stuff like that. So I know it's frustrating when your CPU's lagging, but just think about some different ways that you can be more effective in how you produce. You know, if you have 100 Serum 2 tracks, you're probably gonna shut down, right? It can't handle that. But I think if we're smart about how we produce and what we're doing, and we're very intentional, then we can still make very beautiful music that's simple and doesn't wreck our CPU. So hopefully these help. If you guys have any more tips, let me know in the comments, because when I reach that point where my CPU's maxed, I'm gonna go back to those comments and look at it and be like, okay, that's what I need to do. Let me try this. So I hope these help. We'll catch you guys in another video.
Everybody killing it.